Ever met a man who detests the very fabric of existence down to the most minute details? Well, you're about to. Imagine a man, a singularly unique individual who finds the world around him utterly contemptible. Every atom, every molecule, every grain of sand, and every ray of sunshine is a source of annoyance. The mere thought of coffee, that glorious life-giving elixir for the rest of us, induces in him a fit of revulsion. The chirping of birds, a symphony of nature's joy to ordinary ears, sounds like a cacophony of despair to him. This man, our man, is a connoisseur of disdain, a virtuoso of vexation, an aficionado of antipathy. He navigates through life with a grimace on his face and a grumble in his voice, finding fault in the seemingly faultless. A man who has honed his hatred of everything to such a fine art that it's almost admirable. Welcome to the peculiar world of the man who hates everything. How does one start a day when every aspect of existence is a source of annoyance? Meet the man. His mornings are not filled with chirping birds and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. No, his mornings are a battlefield, a cruel dance with the mundane that seems to take immense pleasure in tormenting him. The alarm clock, his first adversary of the day, sounds its shrill cry, a banshee wailing in the early dawn. A battle of wits ensues. The man, half asleep and fully irritated, hurls words of protest at the relentless beast. "You're early," he grumbles. "I set you for 7:30. But the clock, a stubborn creature of habit, retorts with incessant beeping. And so, the man surrenders, pulling himself from the comfort of his bed. Next, the man faces the mirror, a reflective adversary that offers nothing but brutal honesty. His reflection, a disheveled mess of a human, stares back at him with tired eyes. A sigh escapes his lips. "You again," he mutters, reaching for his toothbrush. The toothpaste, a minty monster, assaults his taste buds with a vengeance. "Why can't they make you taste like bacon?" he grumbles, scrubbing his teeth with an exaggerated grimace. The mirror, of course, offers no sympathy, only reflecting the man's disdain back at him. The shower, a cascade of lukewarm torment, is the man's final opponent. The water, never quite hot enough, needles his skin with relentless droplets. "Too cold, too hot, too wet," he complains, lathering his hair with a shampoo that smells suspiciously like watered-down lemons. These are the trials, the tribulations, the horrors of the man's morning. Each day, a repetitive dance with the mundane, a battle against the banal. He despises the routine, loathes the familiarity, and yet, he persists. The man's morning, an epic battle against the mundane, concludes, but the day has just begun. Imagine hating small talk so much that even a simple hello sends shivers down your spine. This is the reality for our protagonist, the man who hates everything. Picture this. Our hero is enjoying his solitary morning coffee when, out of the blue, he's ambushed by his overly enthusiastic neighbor. "Good morning," the neighbor chirps, radiating the kind of cheerfulness that would make a morning person cringe. But our hero is not a morning person. He's the man who hates everything, remember? "Morning," he grumbles, the word tasting like vinegar on his tongue. He doesn't care for the pleasantries, the trivialities. He'd rather be left alone with his thoughts, his coffee, his solitude. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" the neighbor presses on, oblivious to the man's growing discomfort. His words are like a swarm of bees buzzing around the man's head, stinging at his patience. "Is it?" the man retorts, his voice dripping with sarcasm. To him, every day is just another day. Another day of mundane routines, of pointless conversations, of existing in a world that he just can't seem to resonate with. And then the dreaded question, "How are you?" It's a simple question, right? Wrong. To our hero, it's a Pandora's box of emotions he'd rather not open. It's a question that demands an answer he doesn't care to give. It's a question that, despite its simplicity, feels like a punch to the gut. "I'm here," he responds, his words as flat as his expression. He's here, but he's not here. He's present, but he's not engaged. He's part of the world, but he's not part of its conversations, its social norms, its expectations. So the next time you catch yourself making small talk, spare a thought for the man who hates everything. Because for him, even the simplest conversation is a voyage into the heart of darkness. How does one survive a workplace when the mere sight of a stapler fills you with dread? Consider our man, marooned in an office cubicle, the dull thud of the copy machine echoing in his ears. The very air seems recycled, each breath a tasteless reminder of the monotony he endures daily. His desk, a monument to the mundane, is strewn with paperclips, post-it notes, and a stapler. Oh, the stapler. A symbol of binding monotony, its mere presence enough to summon a shudder. The motivational quotes strewn around his boss's cabin are an affront to his senses. Dream big, work hard, one poster screams. It's a cruel mockery of his existence. He dreams of freedom, of a world beyond spreadsheets and sales reports. Yet here he is, working hard to maintain a system he detests. The water cooler is no solace. It's the epicenter of mind-numbing small talk, where colleagues gather to discuss the weather, yesterday's football match, or the latest office gossip. He cringes at the thought of participating in these banal exchanges. The office kitchen is another battlefield. The stench of microwaved leftovers, the queue for the coffee machine, the passive-aggressive notes about dirty dishes. Each element amplifies his contempt. He finds no comfort in the break room. The sound of laughter and camaraderie only deepens his sense of alienation. His cubicle neighbor's incessant typing is a symphony of horror. Each keystroke is a nail driven into the coffin of his sanity. And let's not even get started on the group emails. The endless threads, the unnecessary reply all, the dreaded urgent marked mails. A digital nightmare that knows no end. The ringing telephone is a siren's call to yet another pointless conversation. The printer's incessant whirring is a reminder of the forest of trees sacrificed for endless reports. Every element of his workplace is an instrument of torture in his symphony of suffering. For our man, every tick of the office clock is a reminder of his disdain for the corporate world. What does one do for leisure when every conceivable activity is a source of irritation? This, dear listeners, is the conundrum that our man, the man who hates everything, grapples with every time he attempts to unwind. Imagine, if you will, a man standing in the midst of a library, surrounded by rows upon rows of books, each with its own universe of words. But to him, they're nothing more than bound sheets of paper, filled with thoughts and ideas that do nothing but bore him to tears. He's tried, oh how he's tried, to find solace in the written word, but to no avail. The classics too pretentious, the thrillers predictable, and don't even get him started on romance novels. The mere thought of them sends shivers of revulsion down his spine. So, you might think, why not switch to the small screen? An episode or two of the latest popular television series should help him relax, right? Wrong. He finds sitcoms as funny as a funeral, dramas as exciting as watching paint dry. And reality TV, well, let's just say he'd rather stick pins in his eyes. The cliched storylines, the over-the-top performances, the incessant commercials, it's all just too much for our man. Perhaps you might suggest he could dabble in some arts and crafts or try his hand at painting or pottery. But alas, these too are met with disdain. The sight of a blank canvas fills him with dread, not inspiration, and clay, well, it's just glorified mud, isn't it? So what then is left for our man to do in his leisure time? The answer, it seems, is nothing, absolutely nothing, not out of laziness or lack of trying, mind you, but out of sheer, unadulterated, all-consuming hatred for everything that the world has to offer in terms of entertainment. In the world of the man who hates everything, leisure time is just another term for torment. So what happens when you hate everything? Does life lose its meaning, or does it gain a new one? Let's ponder on this for a moment. If you're like our man who despises every single thing from the chirping of birds to the setting sun, you might find a twisted sense of humor lurking in the shadows of your aversion. Life, in its absurdity, becomes a dark comedy, a horror show with laugh tracks. You begin to see the world in a different light, where the mundane is grotesque and the grotesque oddly mundane. You find charm in the nonsensical, the ridiculous, the nothingness. This is the life of the man who hates everything. A life filled with disdain yet brimming with a peculiar kind of joy. A life that mirrors the absurdity of existence itself. A life that makes us question our own perceptions. In the grand scheme of things, perhaps we all are in some ways the man who hates everything.